Now we will discuss about B2B Cisco collaboration solution, which we discussed yesterday that you want to see a lab. I will demonstrate a lab also for that. So let's first discuss a little bit about the flow, how it is implemented. So to implement a business to business Cisco collaboration solution, let's assume we have a CUCM already interconnected with Expressway C, which enables calls from the CUCM to the locally registered endpoints and on Expressway C. And when you need to enable business-to-business calls, you have to configure traversal zones. These are the things we need to configure. Yeah, so for business-to-business calls, we'll need to configure traversal zone on Expressway C and Expressway E. All right, so this would be the configuration. Then also on Expressway E, we would require a DNS. DNS would be required. So a DNS zone will be created for that. DNS zone will point towards the public DNS server, and this will configure to cause the public DNS server to get the IP address and of the customer enterprise or customer expressway. So let's suppose by implementing expressway pairs to provide business-to-business communications, we will see here what communications we can perform. So like I mentioned, not sure about the calls from enterprise to the customer side we will be able to see, but we will please see the configuration here. So our topology is we have an expressway P connected with an expressway E. Let's suppose we have a firewall also here. Just creating this diagram here. Then we have internally a CUCM. We have endpoint registered on CUCM. Let's suppose a Jabber. Right. This is our on-prem network, and our domain is cll-collab.internal. This is our inside network. Then we have, let's say, a connection to the internet. We have a public DNS server. Then this is a customer site, let's suppose, for business-to-business communication. So an expressway E, expressway C. Let's suppose here is an endpoint registered here, Jabber. Their IPs in internal, we have 10.1.5.21. We have access to Expressway E 10.1.25.21. Our CUCM is 10.155. So we'll be using these devices to configure the business-to-business collaboration solutions on our end in the enterprise. So firstly, before configuring these business-to-business solution, we need to make sure that the trunk from the CUCM to Expressway is configured that we saw earlier in the previous integration lab. There must be a neighbor zone pointing to CUCM on Expressway C. A very important requirement here is the certificates. Let's suppose the certificates are installed on Expressway C and as Expressway E both to pass the calls outside. We next then need traversal zones. So we will need traversal zone on Expressway C and Expressway E. On C, we'll create client traversal zone, and on Expressway E, server traversal zone. In addition to that, on Expressway E, we also need DNS zone. Yeah. Then we need a dial plan. Like we saw patterns and search rules, we need to configure to make those calls to searching search or any destinations to be successful. So we will configure route pattern. That would be the part of CUCM if you have to make calls through the CUCM to the outside network or to the other business, any customer. Then we need transforms and search rules on Expressway C. Yeah, same way on expressway E, we will need search rules. So these are the main configurations we want to do and are required for the business to business communication. And for business to business collaboration solution, this is the setup, and we need to have all these configurations in place. Yeah, so we will see that we will not be configuring the trunk neighbor zone. This is what we have already seen, the certificate and everything. We will start with the traversal zone here. So I will be showing this part. So first, we need credentials for the traversal zones to authenticate with one another. So we will be creating that. Let's begin here with the lab itself. So that is our first task, to create traversal zones on expressway C and E. So let's log into expressway C, 5.21. Um, this is our expressway E. So we'll begin with expressway E here. On expressway E, we will configure the traversal zone. So let's begin with that. And for these traversal zones to work, these traversal zones are always authenticated. So we need to create credentials for these authentication first. So that will be done in the local database. So within expressway E, we will go to configuration, authentication, devices, local database, create a new account here. Let's suppose I want the name to be B2B admin and password Cisco. Create credentials. Save. This is done. Next, we will create a zone. So we will go to configuration, zones, zones, and we'll add new. Default zone is already there. Automatically, we need to create now a traversal server zone. So let's name it B2B B2B server, and type would be traversal server on expressway E. As you select this, it will add up to some more details it will ask you. So here we want to put the username and password again that we want for authentication. So here we can put the username, which was B2B admin. Okay, B2B admin and password of Cisco. Save it, it will get automatically saved from the local database here. We can close it. We don't need to change anything here, but let's do some changes here in the port numbers. So what we are doing here is in the zones, we are changing the port number to something other than the default, and make sure whenever we change any these ports, these are for like proxy purposes, and when we change it, it has to match on both the sides. So Let's suppose the HT23 port, which is by default 6001. Let's use 6011. And SIP port by default is 7001. We're using 7011. We want to use transport TLS. No, TLS is off only, and we want to keep it off. So we want to keep TLS off to not authenticate using the certificate level verification, but credentials, which is not actually recommended, but we can try that in the requirement if we want to do this through TLS. But here we are keeping it off. Let's save it. Port numbers we have changed. It is created. We have B2B server traversal server zone, S23 on, SIP on, no active sessions as of now. Fine. Let's go to Expressway C now and configure a zone here as well. Zone, add new. We want to create a B2B client here, and type would be traversal client. Username, password should be the ones we have configured on the Expressway E for authentication. So we have to change this to B2B admin. Password. Let's go. All right. Also make sure the port numbers we changed in the zone on Expressway E should match here as well. First. Okay, SIP port number used was 7011. And I should do 3. Port number we used was 6011. Okay, that is it. These are the changes we want to make here. Done. So also make sure in the location here, put the IP address of Expressway E, which is 10.1.25.21 is our Expressway E. Create zone. So here only this traversal client zone is required, whereas in the Expressway E, we also need to configure a DNS zone. Let's go here and new zone. Let's name it B2B DNS. Type will be DNS. For DNS, make sure you have fallback transport protocol configured as TCP or secure transport or in SIP. That's it. Just a moment. For the transport TCP is fine. Okay, let's save. And we need to check the status of these zones. Let's go here, and status is on, which is good. So DNS zone is on, and server is active, which is good. This is how we should be able to see the status here. So zones are done. Let's now create a dial plan. So the dial plan will start from CUCM. So that part we will have to configure. Rest trunk and everything is already configured, but dial plan we will have to. So let's log into CUCM. Here, as per our dial plan, we will have to configure a route pattern. All right, let's go to call routing, route hunt, route pattern, and we will create a new route pattern. The new route pattern would be for the destination for our lab as given in this slide is 6100X. This is the dial plan. So we have to use this dial plan. Then the gateway or route list, we have to select the route list to expressway, which is pre-configured. We just have to configure it here. Route list to expressway. That is it. And we can save it. If the route pattern is configured, it's added successfully. Let's go back to the list and find. And we have this route pattern, which is associated to route list to expressway, which is good. Next, once the call reaches the expressway C from the CUC, and that part we have configured, we need transforms then on the expressway C. That transform will then take the call based on, let's suppose, number at the rate IP address. This is a style of addressing that the CUCM will use to send the call to expressway C and change it to let's suppose a number at the rate domain. So for that, let's suppose we create a transform and then use some pattern type there for matching. So let's go to expressway C. Yes. And here we need to configure dial plan transforms, add new. So in this transform, let me just put a description, change IP to domain. That's what our transform is about. And select a pattern type, regex. Let me create a pattern for that. So in our lab, as predefined, we are using a addressing of number at the rate address, IP address. We want to change that to number at the rate domain. So we're creating a pattern for that. So let's suppose anything starting with the string 6100 dot at the rate anything can be IP, domain, anything then, which will be in our case IP. And we want to replace that with /1 to first group the same and change and replace The second portion with CLL-collab dot external to send it to the outside network. This is the domain we're considering for the customer, the other business, and ours is internal. So replace it with this and then send it out. Create transform. So this is for outbound call, what we are doing right now. So this is done. Similarly, we will have to create transform and search rules on the Expressway E also. So once the dial string is in the domain format, we need a search rule also here. So first, let's create a search rule on Expressway C that will take the call and send it out to the from the client zone, traversal client zone to Expressway E. Then on the Expressway E, we will configure a search rule again. So let's go to that plan here. And this time, create a search rule. Add new. Rest everything that you see in the list are pre-configured. All right. B2B out for outbound calls. I'm creating a search rule for outgoing B2B calls. Priority, let me change to 101. Mode, previous pattern match. Regex. And let's use this is for anything again, can be the same. And exclamation mark, which means anything or not. Dot